from you, the viewers, about Access Cable Television, about the programs we produce, about some of the workshops that we have, and any questions that you may have regarding cable access television to either me or my guest tonight. First, I'd like to give a huge thank you to Arthur Brault, who is graduating from the Basic Access class. Arthur has just recently finished designing our new set. He built a new set for us and for his new upcoming show. So watch for his new show coming in March. So I'd like to thank Arthur for the set behind us, and during the night, I'd like you all to appreciate the set behind us. Talk to WCTV was developed by me, the general manager, so that I could talk directly to the viewers of Wilmington. I'm trying to get as many of you viewers at home involved and educated about access television and how it can help you. Tonight we have a very special guest. We have Stella Courtney, and Stella has been on the board for longer than I've been here, and she's going to talk to us a little bit about what she does here, what she's done before I got here, and what she's been doing since I got here. So thanks for coming on tonight.
Thank you, Karen.
Stella's been quite active. Could you tell our audience what you do at WCTV when you're here 4, 5, 6 hours a week?
At the present time, I'm the treasurer, and I'm also chairman of the program planning committee. The treasurer usually has the dullest part of the work. We write the checks, we pay the bills, and we also work on various things like the budget, and I do some financial analyses. Also, we periodically have program planning committee meetings, which Karen attends, and we try to plan new ideas, try to take care of old problems. In fact, we had a meeting last night, and we discussed what we were going to do about the third channel. As many of you know, that not only are 30 and 52 access channels in Wilmington, but also channel 56. And we'd like to start planning what we're going to do for programming on that channel, as well as improving and increasing the programs on the present channels that are available to you. If you have any questions, we can tell you a little bit about that. If you have any financial questions that may have bothered you about the operation of the station or why we're here, I can answer those. Before Karen came, I was with the original group that started, and we also had a very dull time. It was struggling with the bylaws. It was not anybody's favorite occupation, but it takes a very long time to go through the bylaws because you have to live with these. And these are the rules and regulations that govern what we do. Also, we had to worry about a place for a location of where we could have the studio. And that was quite a problem. Back in '87, if anyone remembers back that far, rental prices were very high. There was not much space available in school buildings, and so we had to spend quite a bit of time hunting around. Finally, we came to this building, and the town said that we could renovate and have the basement of the Swain School. Of course, when we first saw it, I must say, you never saw so many discouraged-looking faces in your life.
Were you one of the larger supporters or one of the larger doubters?
I was sitting on the fence. We had a certain amount of money that we could spend to do renovating. And we had reached a point where there was no more paperwork to do. We really had to do something in terms of programming and get going. So I think we all finally, after looking at the architect's schemes, felt a little better about it and went ahead with the renovations. So this is how we got here in our new home.
What was your role during this time, during the bylaws time, during the hunting for the location? What was your role?
I was just mainly a member of the board of directors. I wasn't an officer in the beginning. I served for a short time as vice president. For those of you who may remember, we lost our first president, and that was Ed Rideout, who had this station as a dream of his. In fact, there's a plaque donated in his memory that you'll see as before you come into the studio. So there were quite a few traumatic events, and we all had to fill in wherever we could. The board wasn't that as large as the 15 members we have now.
We do have a call. Hello, you're live on Talk to WCTV. Do you have a question? No, okay, call back again. It's 657-4066. Now, when you developed from the role you were in, what was the first active position that you took on the board of directors? Was it right into the treasurer position?
No, mainly I became the authority on the bylaws, and that goes back to the fact that the town some years ago did a project revising all the town bylaws, and I sat on that committee. And in fact, I sat on the 2 subsequent committees that revised the town bylaws. So I had a little experience in it and knew how tedious the work could be, but also how important it could be.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. We do have another call. Hello, okay, 657-4066. We're going to be reworking that telephone system very soon so that the people who do have calls can get through. We are live tonight on the 27th at 657-4066. Hello, you're live on Talk to WCTV. Do you have a question? No, okay. Any more of those phone calls, we may have to disconnect the phone system. Let's see, now you became an authority on the bylaws. That must have taken some reading.
Well, not only I, but the rest of the committee became an authority on the bylaws. Thank heaven for a computer and a word processing. You could redo them and revise them. And of course, they finally had to go to the attorney for approval, and after that, then we finally, in fact, they have stood up very well. We've had to revise very little. I don't think we've changed more than a few words since we finally put them together and voted them. And of course, from that, we went on to looking for a manager. And
what year are we talking now?
Oh dear, let's see, that's about 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, he was hired, maybe a little over 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. Phil Ramasi, who was our first general manager. He didn't even have an office or a desk when he started. We did find him a location where one of the board members had an office, and they allowed him to use the telephone. And I think his car was the rest of his office until, of course, the renovations were done here.
Okay. Hello, you're live on Talk to WCTV. Do you have a question?
Eureka.
Okay, we're going to be disconnecting the phone system right now. Tell us a little bit about your development into the treasurer position.
I didn't really develop into the treasurer position when Carol Backman became president. And she asked if I would be treasurer, or I would run for treasurer, because of course you have to be elected for office. And I said I would do it for her for 1 year. And so I did. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, Carol has gone and left her job, took her to Connecticut. And we now have a new president, Susan Koufagascos, and everything's going along well.
Mm-hmm. Now, your term ends, unfortunately, in March.
Well, my term ends mainly because anyone who's on the board of directors is only allowed to serve 2 consecutive terms. My term was only a year, and some of the other members had only a year. Those of us who had felt there was time, had for various reasons thought it best to leave. Some of the other older members will be on for another year. This is so that you will not have the same group of directors all the time.
Well, that only makes sense. It brings some new ideas in. It brings some new blood into
That's
into
right.
the board.
Well, and it gives people who have different viewpoints. Something that has the same people involved all the time can become very stagnant. And as you know, this is a business where you cannot be very stagnant.
It's always growing.
Yes, that's right.
Right.
And
now, is that written into the bylaws that
yes,
after some
that's very
time?
definitely written into the bylaws. You can only serve 2 terms, and then you have to be off for at least 1 year. Also, there are about 5 seats on the board reserved for members, so that people who are members of the corporation also have an opportunity to serve on the board of directors, and they can also run for office, and they do so at the annual meeting, which is coming up next month.
That's March 20th, if I'm not mistaken. Now, I know your treasurer position is very important to me so that I can get my paycheck, but I find your program planning chairpersonship the most interesting. Tell me about that.
Well, let me start with some of the items that we discussed last night. As you know, we'd like to expand our programming and bring more topics of interest to the audience. One thing that was suggested, for example, would be that we would try to get in touch with people who have done videotapes years ago, and especially those people who live locally, and perhaps edited those tapes and put them on so that you can see what so-and-so looked like 10 years ago, or how well so-and-so played ball.
Because video cameras have been around for, say, 10 years anyway.
At least, yeah, I would say so.
So if people have some videotapes of an old softball game or an old parade in town, that could show some history of Wilmington.
That's right.
So I think that would be an excellent idea.
And I'm sure there are people who have taken pictures, tapes of parades that we've had in town. And some of them have been very good, and it would be nice to be able to see those again. And instead of standing at the roadside, you can sit comfortably at home and see it. So we thought we'd see what we could do about that in terms of building up our library. We also thought we might try swapping tapes with other access stations in the local area. Frequently there are things that happen in the surrounding area that is of interest to people outside the community. So that might be a way of shipping out some of our tapes and letting them see some of the work we've done, and we can see some of the work that they've done.
That would be really exciting to be able to share some tapes with, say, Billerica or Chelmsford, the nearby areas. And the people in Wilmington are probably very interested in what's happening in their surrounding communities, especially seeing as how it could affect you as a resident. We have Stella Courtney as our guest tonight. We won't be taking any phone calls for this evening. Now, what else did we discuss at the meeting last night?
Well, yes, you were teaching a class, so you may have missed.
So I don't even know what we talked about last
We
night.
keep you very busy, obviously. We discussed about doing more to encourage members and other citizens in the community to do more local productions and to help you in encouraging people to do that. We did talk about, this is more the in the area of the Personnel Committee, but we did talk about more personnel. I suppose we're kind of unique in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. We're talking about hiring rather than laying people off. And the budget is in good shape so far, so we'll be able to put on more individuals to help.
And tonight we have 3 volunteers helping. We have Linda Corbett behind camera. We have Stephen Knight behind camera. Hello, Stephen. And we have Mark Paolini all over the directing room. And we won't be taking any calls tonight, so Mark, you can take the phone off the hook. And Mark is very experienced with directing, and both of our camera people are very experienced as well. 99% of our crew is volunteers, just like yourself at home. If you'd like to help running camera or produce a program so that can help the programming committee, please give me a call on, next week or tomorrow, Thursday the 28th, and talk to me about some ideas. We had a great idea a couple of weeks ago. A resident in town plays the guitar, and he wants to produce a program about strumming a guitar, teaching lessons, telling a few jokes, and we really encourage programs like that, and I think that that's what the programming committee is looking for.
Very definitely. In fact, when I retire as treasurer, I hope to get involved in some of the fun part and maybe produce a program or two. And I do have a musical program in mind of someone who's given concerts locally quite often, and if I can talk her into it, I'd like to see her on tape.
Would you feel comfortable being on this side?
I don't know. I think I'd have to try it a few more times before.
It's not so bad. It's something that definitely takes...
Well, it's not too difficult for me because I'm somewhat nearsighted and I can't see the cameras too well, so they don't make me as nervous as I expected they would.
Oh, great. Now, what else on the programming committee? It's a large committee.
Well, yes, it is. As chairman, I've encouraged everyone on the board to get involved and to take an interest in program planning, and most of the board members do belong to that committee, and they can come and go as they please. There's no problem with that. It's a very animated committee. They all have their own opinions and ideas, but eventually we come to a consensus of opinion. One of the other things, to get back to additional personnel, would be hopefully with some help, more local events can be filmed and taped, and we can say if there is something going on, perhaps send out a cameraman to tape it, and we can run it.
But of course, this doesn't discount the community getting involved.
Of course not. In fact, the more they're involved, the better. And the more they get bitten by the bug, they can't tell.
One thing that I've always noticed is a lot of people call in saying, will you send one of your crew to videotape XYZ? That's not what we're here for. We're here to train the people to become involved. For example, Steve Knight. We'll train him to run the camera, we'll train him with lighting, we'll train him with audio. Sometimes he trains us. So it's a community involvement. I hate to think that the community is confused, thinking that we're similar to the newspapers who go out and cover events.
No, definitely not, and we can't be. Access TV stations were set up so that they would fill in the void left by the commercial operations, and that they would be mainly educational and cultural.
That's very important. Now, some of the programs that we do produce here are educational programs, entertainment programs, sports programming. In fact, tonight, please stay tuned to WCTV. We have some programs on directly after tonight's show, and we also have live coverage of school committee meetings. That always seem to be our most popular programs, are the live school committee meetings and the live selectmen meetings.
Yes, in fact, that also came up at the meeting last night, and the request was made that we run repeats of the selectmen's meetings more often, and perhaps that's what we can do. As general manager, you can probably schedule that in some more.
Yes, we have had a few requests to play the selectmen meetings and the school committee meetings on tape as often as we possibly can. So we will be doing that. If you have any requests of me as the general manager, please feel free to call me during the week. My office hours are between 2 and 3 in the afternoon. And if you have a request, if you missed a program and you'd like to see it again, please call me at 657-4066 during the week. If you have an unusual request or a not so unusual request, I'll see what I can do with the programming. I make up the schedules each week, and here's an example of our programming. And we do program Monday through Monday. We have been programming on Saturdays and Sundays as well with our automatic playback system. So if you have a request that you missed a program or you'd like to see selectmen on more often, please just let us know, and I'm sure I'll be happy to accommodate you on that.
Well, Karen, maybe you could repeat the newspapers where they could find printouts of the programming.
Okay.
And see what's coming up.
Yes, we do put our programming listing in the Sudbury, or the Wilmington Town Crier. When I worked in Sudbury, there was a Sudbury Town Crier. It's in the Wilmington Town Crier. It is in the Suburban News and in the Merrimack Valley Advertiser. So it's in 3 newspapers. Oftentimes we have little press releases about some of the programs that we produce. Once a month we have an article that I write for the newspapers called WCTV News and Notes. What that is a summation of what we've done in the past month. And I usually get a lot of phone calls from people who had never heard of the studio just because of that article each month.
Good. Well, perhaps we have to put the publicity committee to work and have them do a little more publicity. It's interesting. When we first started, nobody knew who we were or what we were, but slowly and surely, I think the audience has begun to grow, and people in the town have begun to recognize that it's their TV station, and that we're here, and that they can get involved. So I suppose with another year or so, maybe we'll have a great many people more involved than we do now.
Well, you gave us a brief glimpse of what life is for you after March. Give us a little bit more. You only gave us a little taste. What do you hope to do after March? Be the producer of programs?
Well, yes, but I think the first thing I'm going to do is go back to class, because the equipment has changed since I took the first round of classes. So the first thing I will do is come back to class and try to become familiar with the equipment again.
Now, some of the classes that Stella's talking about are our basic access classes. And we teach basic access classes as often as I can teach them. Right now, a Tuesday evening class is wrapping up, and a Thursday evening class is just starting. And I'd like to say hello to my basic access class 2, which is the Thursday night class. I'd like to say hello to them right now. But there are a lot of courses, and hopefully that when we do get more staff, hopefully that staff will also take on a few workshops and teach some editing classes. Mm-hmm. Have you taken editing?
Yes, I did, and it was, I think, in the middle of the summer, and very hot and very uncomfortable. It wasn't my favorite class, I'll tell you.
Oh,
perhaps I'll like it better the second time around. Mm-hmm. And after that, I hope to take the class in producing. Mm-hmm. Is it production 1 or?
What I usually do is I look at the group and decide if someone needs more strengths in producing a show. I'll have a producing workshop.
Yeah. And I did get started on a cooking program with local personalities involved. And I even have some tape, which I plan to bring to class with me.
Was that in the studio here or
yes,
on
we
location?
did it in the studio, yeah. And it turned out pretty good. We simply didn't go any further with it because one of the people in our group was involved with illness in the family, and another one had a daughter getting married, and life became too confusing at that point, and it was just before the holidays, so we had to give it up. However, we'll try it again.
Yeah, you can either do a show in the studio here where we're located, or you can do, for example, a cooking show if someone has a very elaborate kitchen, elaborate meaning large more than anything. You could use the camcorder to videotape a cooking show that way.
Well, we thought we'd try both. We might do some things here in the studio, and also we thought we might go out on location. We have 2 or 3 places in mind where we thought we might try to catch a local chef in his own kitchen.
What type of shows have you always wanted to see here?
I would like to see perhaps some of our local experts, some of the people who are expert, for example, in gardening, perhaps come and talk about their experiences, especially where they deal with our local weather. I would like to see, we have some experts in history. We have people who, perhaps some of the senior citizens, who know a lot about the early history in Wilmington. Going back to the bylaw study committee, the town bylaw study committee, one of the members of the committee was Stanley Weber, and Stanley lived here in the days just after Prohibition, and in Massachusetts and in this area, and he had a lot of interesting tales to tell us about Wilmington.
You don't want to lose those.
No, we
those
don't, and
tales.
I'd like to see a lot of those on tape, and perhaps we can do something like that.
Yeah, those are the programs I've always wanted to see, is someone who just knows how to do a craft, who knows how to do gardening, who knows how to do mechanical work on cars. Those are the programs that I'd like to see, as well as getting the students in town involved, the youth. We're going to be working closely with the recreation department so that the children out of school in June will be able to have some place to go. They'll be able to utilize the studio as part of the recreation department. This could be an extension of the recreation department, and the children can get involved and produce programs, do talk shows, run camera or direct.
I think that's an excellent idea. In fact, since we started in the studio, we've tried to work any relationships that we could with the school system so that the young adults and the youngsters in town could get involved, because it is a growing field. And,
well, we'd like to thank you for coming on tonight. This show, as always, is made possible by a grant by AAA Cartel Cleaning Company. Next week we will be live on Wednesday, that's March 6th already, at 6 p.m. and we have a special guest that night too. It's board member Stella Courtney. She'll be a guest at 6 p.m. on March 6th. Thank you for watching Talk to WCTV. For all my crew and my guest, I'd like to bid you good night and thank you for watching.